Welcome to the 7th installment of the Systematic Review Seminar Series. My name is Tom Harrod, and I'm the Associate Director for Reference, Instruction, and Access at the Himmelfarb Health Sciences Library at the George Washington University. During this session, we will be discussing data extraction. Here you can see where we are in the Systematic Review Seminar Series. In the last session, we discussed how to winnow down the initial body of articles, and now we will talk about how to properly extract data from those articles. Here's an outline of what I plan to cover in this session. We'll begin by talking about what to extract, then we'll discuss organization, and finally, we'll look at an example of a data extraction. It's not possible to say with any exactness what you should extract, as that will be highly dependent on the question that you are addressing and the outcomes you hope to explore. It's highly variable and is decided on a case-by-case basis to suit the needs of the reviewers. However, there are some broad principles to consider which may help you to think about your data extraction. As with the development of inclusion-exclusion criteria, you can begin your process of developing a data extraction rubric by considering the PICO elements of your question. When thinking about the question you wish to answer, what population, intervention or exposure, and outcome aspects will you need to know? The idea is to work backwards from the analysis that you plan to do and determine what information you will need in order to perform that analysis. Another thing to keep in mind is that for data extraction, individual studies should be your unit of analysis, not articles, as sometimes data may be used to produce more than one article. So that is something to be watchful for at this point, potential multiple publication bias. On this page, I've shared a quote from the Cochrane Handbook, which I think nicely encapsulates what one ought to be considering when developing data extraction criteria. That is, the data collected for a review should adequately describe the included studies, support the construction of tables and figures, facilitate the risk of bias assessment, and enable syntheses and meta-analyses. The first step in this process is to think about how you are going to extract data. This has traditionally been done with pencil and paper, but is now more likely accomplished with the help of shared online resources. That can be through the use of a shared Google Sheet form or through the use of systematic review software like Covidence. I will look at Covidence in a little more detail on one of the subsequent slides. Here also is another quote from the Cochrane Handbook that I think nicely describes the situation. The key to successful data collection is to construct easy-to-use forms and to collect sufficient and unambiguous data that faithfully represent the source in a structured and organized manner. On the following slides, I will run through an example from a published systematic review. We should start by considering the stated objective of the paper. It is written here, as taken directly from the article, to determine the role of intermittent fasting in preventing and reducing the risk of CVD in people with or without prior documented CVD. To consider the appropriateness and adequacy of what they will extract, it's important to start at this point. On this page, we can see some of the elements that the authors extracted from the selected articles. You can see that these are somewhat organized around the PICO elements of the research question. They have attempted to identify all of the data points they will need in order to do a proper analysis at the end. So, things like a description of the intervention groups, how was study enrollment accomplished, the attrition rate throughout the experiment, primary and secondary outcomes that were collected, and so forth. Very often, you will need to extract a lot more data than you realize. Here's a continuation, more data points that they extracted from the studies. Please note the amount and variety of information which they wish to extract in order to thoroughly analyze the articles that they have included. As mentioned prior, Covidence can be extremely helpful in this process. Here is a screen capture of the data extraction template creation tool within Covidence. Doing this within Covidence can greatly streamline the process and make it much easier to track and compare the extractions of different reviewers. In conclusion, we've discussed how to determine what needs to be extracted from articles. This will, of course, vary greatly from project to project, but should support the objectives of the systematic review. That is, what you extract will need to be adequate to thoroughly perform the desired analysis. As with prior steps, data extraction will likely require some testing and refining, and you will be well served to make the effort to properly train all extractors to ensure that there is a shared understanding of what is to be extracted. Thank you for watching. Here is my email address, tph@gwu.edu. If you are a student or faculty member at George Washington University, please feel free to reach out. Next time, we will discuss how to perform a quality assessment.